Hi guys, I wanted to do a little lesson on run-ons and fragments. We're going to focus less on the fragments and a little bit more on the run-ons because that is what is more common and they're a little trickier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to watch this video and I'm going to have you answer some questions just to make sure that you saw the video and you watched it in its entirety. And I want to make sure that you understand fragments and run-ons. A lot of times, students have a really hard time distinguishing run-ons because they read it one way in their heads. But when they put it on paper, they don't put it on paper grammatically correctly, but it sounds right to them in their heads because they know what they want to say, but they don't write it correctly. So we need to make sure that as academic writers, we are writing everything grammatically correctly because as you go into your other classes, that is what they're expecting. And run-ons and fragments are the biggest problem for most people. And a lot of people will say, oh, commas are my biggest problem. Well, guess what? The commas are part of the run-ons. So let's take a look at what a sentence is. We know that a sentence is a subject and a verb that expresses a complete thought. Now that you're in college, you will often hear a sentence referred to as an independent clause. That's the fancy name for a sentence. So if you hear or see something about an independent clause, remember that's just a sentence. And the way you can think of it is you are now independent. You can stand on your own. So if you've ever done taxes, you know that on taxes, they often say, how many dependents do you have? That means people who depend on you. If you don't have any dependents, then you are independent. You are on your own. And that's what a sentence is. A sentence can stand on its own. It has a subject and it has a verb and it expresses a complete thought. Now, a fragment. When you think of a fragment, we often think of a piece of something, a fragment of a window. It's a piece of the window. Well, it's the same thing with a sentence. A fragment is a group of words that looks like a sentence, but it's missing a subject, a verb, or a complete thought. Therefore, it is incomplete. Yes, fragments are considered one of the 4 major errors in writing. But I would also say that run-ons are a lot more common. Fragments are a little bit easier to catch. And if you go back and reread, which you should always do, reread your essay or whatever you're submitting, and you read it out loud, you can often hear the fragment. The best thing to do is to have somebody else read it for you. But let's talk about fragments very quickly. Here is an example of one fragment. It's hard to find time to study. That is not a fragment. It's hard to find time to study, complete thought. With all of my other work. Notice that they made this a new sentence. It would be fine if it went together. With all of my other work, comma, it's hard to find time to study. That would be a complete sentence. But because this person made it its own sentence, it's a fragment. If you look at it independently, with all of my other work, what are they talking about? Say that this part isn't in here. And it just said, with all of my other work. What about it? That doesn't make sense, right? So you can see that it's very easy to fix a fragment. It's hard to find time to study, take out the period, lowercase w, with all of my other work. Then you have a complete sentence. A lot of times, people will start with a subordinating conjunction, a word group that starts with a dependent word. Remember, dependent means you count on somebody else or you need something else. You're not independent. Because we left early. Because we left early is not a complete thought. Why did you leave early? Or what happened? We got home early because we left early. All of this could be put together into one sentence. So fragments are pretty easy. Oh, here's some more. All right. I hope none of you would do this, but I was running as fast as I could, period. Hoping to get there on time, period. Now, the reason that I think fragments are making a little bit more of a comeback is because of text messaging. And I know that in text messaging, we're not always grammatically correct. And that's fine as long as it's only in text messaging. Surprisingly, I don't like to be grammatically correct on text messages, so my text messages tend to be long. But a lot of times people will try to shorten a text message, and they do it this way. I was running as fast as I could, hoping to get there on time. They're just putting their thoughts out there. That's fine if you're writing a text, but in academic writing, you can't have those fragments. So I was running as fast as I could, comma, hoping to get there on time. A word group that starts with to and a verb. Sherry got underneath the car, period, to change the oil. I would hope that if you read that, you would be able to hear that it should not be two sentences. This one, a word group that starts with an example or explanation. I'm taking several classes this semester, period, such as English, history, and math. That's not a complete sentence. Such as English, history, and math, if you took out this first part, this wouldn't make much sense. I enjoy watching scary movies, for example, Dawn of the Dead and the Friday the 13th movies. So you could say, for example, Dawn of the Dead and the Friday the 13th movies are some of my favorites. That would be okay because it has a subject and a verb. So, ways to correct a fragment. Add what's missing. A fragment means it's a piece of something. It means something is missing. So, just what I said. For example, Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th movies are some of my favorites. You have a subject and a verb, and it makes a complete thought. You can attach the fragment to the sentence before or after it. We got home early because we left early. I'm taking several classes this semester, comma, such as English, history, and math. You want to make sure you have a complete thought for all of your fragments. All right, now the big daddy, run-ons. A run-on is created when two complete sentences, remember we also call those independent clauses because they can stand on their own, are joined together incorrectly. That means without proper punctuation. And they're written as one sentence. A lot of times people will talk in run-ons. We just go on and keep talking and we add stuff and we think about things and we add that to our thought process and we just say it and we don't punctuate our speaking correctly. You can't do that when you're writing an academic paper. It has to have proper punctuation. So there are two kinds of run-ons. We have fused sentences, and then we also have comma splices. Let's talk about both of them. A fused sentence. When you fuse something together, you are usually jamming it together. If you take two pieces of, and I'm not into all of this, so I'm not sure if this is right, but iron or steel or metal, and you can fuse them together. They're probably not meant to be together, but you can force them together. So a fused sentence is when two complete sentences are joined together without any punctuation. That means you jammed them together. And they really aren't supposed to be together, but you jammed them together. Exercising is important. It can keep your weight down. Now, if you're talking, that might be the way you talk. But when you're writing, that is incorrect. I picked up my laundry, then I went home. A lot of people would say that looks correct. That sounds correct, but it is actually not correct. It is fused. It is joined together incorrectly. She had a sore throat. She was running a fever. Two ideas that are jammed together incorrectly. Now, a comma splice. Most people hate commas, mainly because they are very confusing and often because you weren't taught properly. Because a lot of people don't even like to deal with the comma. And I like to make things as simple as possible. So let's look at the comma splice. We're not going to get into all of the other things commas can do, but let's look specifically at a comma splice. A comma splice is created when two complete sentences are joined together by only a comma. So a lot of times students will have two complete sentences and they put it together with a comma and they say, oh, I have a comma in there, I'm good. That's not correct. Look at the first one. She started feeling bad on Monday, comma. By Wednesday, comma, she was running a high fever. This comma, it's in red, should not be there. I picked up my laundry, comma, then I went home. A lot of people would say, oh, that's correct because first she picked up her laundry, then she went home. But this is actually a comma splice because these are two independent clauses, two phrases that could be complete sentences. And they're jammed together. Just because you put this comma in here does not mean you punctuated it correctly. His job paid well, comma. However, comma, he still couldn't make ends meet. That is still incorrect. So we're going to look at how we're going to fix those. So how can you correct a run-on? You might need to write this down. Number one, you can add a period. That is a very simple way to fix a run-on. Make it two sentences. However, you don't want to do that for every single run-on. You also don't want to do that for every single sentence. A lot of people will just write short, choppy sentences to make sure that they don't have run-ons, but we're in college now, and we don't want to have short, choppy sentences because it's going to sound like it was written by a second grader. We want to have complex sentences. We want to have more meat behind our writing. Every once in a while, yes, it's fine. Add a period and make it two sentences, but not all the time. You can add a semicolon, and most people say, oh, a semicolon, I hate those things. But they're really easy to use if you know how, and we'll talk about that. You need to add a comma and a coordinating conjunction. We'll talk about that. Or you need to add a dependent word. Remember, independent and dependent. A dependent word depends on the rest of the sentence. So, how do we add a period? This is the easiest one. Add a period between the two independent clauses. I picked up my laundry, period. Then I went home, period. Imagine if you wrote this the entire way, the entire essay. It would be lots of simple, choppy sentences. Every once in a while might be okay. If you want to make sure that you wrote something grammatically correct and you're not sure how to do it, this might be the easiest way to do it. But I wouldn't suggest this for your entire paper. She started feeling bad on Monday, period. By Wednesday, comma, she was running a high fever. These are two separate sentences. This one is a little more sophisticated, so it's less simple than these, but it's still a little bit choppy. His job paid well, period. However, he still couldn't make ends meet. If you have a however, a lot of people think you can just put a comma in front and after the however. It does not work that way. You need to have a period, and then you need to have new sentence, however, comma, he still couldn't make ends meet. The semicolon. You want to add a semicolon between two independent clauses. Independent clause, remember, means complete sentence. They have to be independent. So if you took them apart, they would be complete sentences. So remember back here, I picked up my laundry, period. Then I went home. These are two sentences. If we go over here, you could say, I picked up my laundry, semicolon. Then I went home. This is often in the place of a period, but the idea is that you want to make sure that all of this goes together. So she picked up her laundry, then she went home. She didn't go anywhere else after that. She didn't go to the grocery store. She picked up her laundry, then she went home. It's all one idea. You can put the semicolon in there. And I strongly suggest that you use a semicolon when necessary, but not all the time. A semicolon is a symbol or a sign of sophisticated writing. And if you know how to use it properly, it works very well in academic writing or any kind of writing. His job paid well, semicolon. However, comma, he still couldn't make ends meet. So if we go back, his job paid well, period. However, he still couldn't make ends meet. This is a little choppier. This is a little more connected because they both go together. And if you put that semicolon in, it makes it flow better. But you still have to make sure you put it in correctly. Still need that comma after however. Now look at these guidelines. A semicolon can only be used where a period could be used. Think of it as a more sophisticated period. You are academic, you're college students now, you don't want your writing to be choppy. Put a semicolon in. Don't put it in everywhere. But every once in a while, use a semicolon. And this is what I said before. There must be a complete sentence on either side. So I wish I could show you. I'm pointing with my finger. But if I covered this up and I just read, I picked up my laundry. Is that a complete sentence? Yes. Now cover that up. Then I went home. Is that a complete sentence? Yes. You have to make sure that on either side of the semicolon, they could be complete sentences. They cannot be fragments. The two sentences must be closely related in order to be punctuated with a semicolon. Don't put a semicolon in if they are not closely tied together. This one, I picked up my laundry, then I went home. It's telling you exactly what she did first, then what she did after. His job paid well. However, he still couldn't make ends meet. He couldn't make ends meet even though his job paid well. They're connected. You don't want to say his job paid well. He bought tomatoes at the store. Because maybe in your mind, he's buying tomatoes at the store because he just got paid and his job pays well enough that he can go buy groceries, but that's not connected enough to the reader. So you have to make sure the semicolon is used only when it's very closely related. Most semicolons are followed by a transitional word. Notice then and however. This indicates the relationship of the two sentences. So I picked up my laundry, I went home. This transitional word here, then I went home, means she went home after she did her laundry or picked up her laundry. However, so this is basically saying, yes, his job paid well, but he still can't make ends meet. This, however, is that transitional word. Okay, a comma and a coordinating conjunction. You're going to use a comma and a coordinating conjunction between the two independent clauses. If you already have a comma, add a coordinating conjunction. They must go hand in hand. Now, I picked up my laundry, comma, and then I went home. This is the coordinating conjunction, and. She had a sore throat, and she was running a high fever. Now, here's where I want you to write something down. I want you to write down fanboys. Fanboys. And fanboys is a way to remember coordinating conjunctions. And I want you to write down what each of the coordinating conjunctions are. So it goes right down FANBOYS, fanboys. So the F is for for, FOR. A is and, AND. N is for not. B, oh, sorry, that was wrong. Nor. See, hold on. Let me do something really quickly because I'm confusing myself by not being able to see it. I always have to write it down. I'm a visual person. Let me show it to you. No, it's not the movie Fanboys. Here it is. All right. Here's a pretty way to remember it. For and nor but or yet so. Yes, I can do it that way. Why did I say not? All right. Can you see that? It's a little blurry. There it is. Okay. So here, this might be easier for you. For and nor but or yet so. Notice it's fanboys. I was too busy concentrating on explaining how to write this, but here it is right here. For and nor but or yet so. These are your coordinating conjunctions. So there's 7 of them. And they connect the independent clauses. So let's go back. No, it's probably going to start me at the beginning, isn't it? Nope. Okay. So look here. And. I picked up my laundry, comma, and. Then I went home. She had a sore throat, comma, and. She was running a fever. For and nor but. Oh my goodness, look. For and nor but or yet so. There it is, right there. Coordinating conjunction. And you're going to see that in a few minutes when you do your practice. You can also add a dependent word. A dependent word, remember, it depends on something else. So it puts 2 independent clauses together. Exercising is important because it can keep your weight down. This word depends on the other 2 sentences to make it work. She had a sore throat while she was running a fever. She had a sore throat. She was running a fever. Well, you could put it together. While she was running a fever. Okay, come on. Uh-oh, what happened? All right. Let me get out of this. And let's go to this. Now, this is what you are going to see on your exercises that you need to get done for Thursday's class. So this is a run-on sentence worksheet. Notice I don't even I'm not going to have you do fragments. I don't think that this one has fragments in it. I have one that has fragments, but I don't think you need that. We'll see. But right now, let's focus on the run-on sentences worksheet. So 15 of the following sentences are run-ons. Please correct each one of them on the lines below. You can print this out, or if you would rather write it out on notebook paper, that's fine, as long as it's nice and neat. Use all 3 ways to correct the run-on sentences at least 3 times each. So a period, semicolon, comma, plus coordinating conjunction. What they're saying is don't do a period for every single one. Don't do every single one the same. So you have to do at least 3 times. You have to do a period 3 times, a semicolon 3 times, and a comma and a coordinating conjunction 3 times. 5 of them are correct. If it's correct, just put a C next to that number. So look at the first one. My father retired from the Air Force last year. He's writing a book about his experiences. That is a run-on. How would you correct that? And you would rewrite the sentence. So yes, you have to rewrite all of the sentences unless they're correct. So 5 of them you will not have to rewrite. Let's go down. Decide which of the following groups of words are run-ons. If the group of words is a correct sentence, just write S. If it's a run-on, write RO. If it is a run-on, you have to correct it. So you have to rewrite the sentence, and you have to use one of these three ways. Once again, do not use the same type of correction for all of them. This has 20. So you might want to do the first 5 as separate sentences, the next 5 as a semicolon, or you might want to just figure out which one works best. But don't just go through and make them all separate sentences, because then you won't get your points. You have to use all of them. Then the following paragraph is confusing because it contains some sentence fragments and run-ons. Now, this is where I kind of like this because this is more realistic of what you're going to see, especially when we do peer editing. You need to make sure that you are able to identify run-ons and fragments in a paragraph. It's easy to pick them out when they're by themselves in a sentence. But it's a little trickier when they're in a paragraph because you're reading and it's just flowing. But you have to read it grammatically. So you're going to go through and identify the fragments by underlining them once. So what you're going to have to do is, if you don't print this sheet out, you're going to have to write the entire paragraph and then underline the fragments once. Run-ons are underlined twice. And then correct the paragraph in DOL style, meaning you have to fix the paragraph so it is grammatically correct. So this one's going to be a little hard. So that's why I think you should probably print these out. Remember, you get 15 free copies at the computer center down the hall from us. So use that. That's part of your tuition, so you might as well use it. But anything that's incorrect, you need to rewrite and fix. So it's almost as if you're imagining you're me, and I'm reading this paragraph that you wrote, and I'm correcting your grammatical errors. How am I going to correct them, and what would I do? So this is due Thursday. Please take your time. Please make sure that you are understanding it. And please make sure that you are focused on identifying fragments and run-ons in your own writing. When you write your summary on Teddy Roosevelt, I want you to go back and proofread. I know that seems like such a pain, but honestly, it's the best thing that you can do is go back and proofread. Read it out loud. Have somebody else read it. A lot of times you can hand your paper to somebody else and have them read it and have them read it out loud so you can hear what it sounds like. If they're stumbling over the sentences or stumbling over the words, that might mean that you didn't write it clearly enough. It could be grammatical, or you could have used poor word choice. But it's so good to be able to hear it written out or hear it read out loud by somebody who didn't write it, because you know what you intended to say and you know what you want to say. So if you read it out loud to somebody, you're going to read it the way you're hearing it in your head. But if somebody else reads it out loud to you and they stumble over a couple of words and it sounds a little confusing and they're not sure how it's supposed to be read, that is a sign to you that maybe you need to relook that or look at that part again and see if you can make it a little more clear. So that is what you are going to do. So remember, you are going to answer the questions. I'm going to give you some questions about this video. You're going to answer those. You're going to do the run-on sentence worksheet, all parts, rewriting the sentences. Please make it neat. If you don't print it, I strongly suggest you print it though. And then you're going to write your summary for Teddy Roosevelt. Remember, the summary is going to be read by several people in the class as well as myself. We'll be doing some peer editing. We'll be making some suggestions. Please give it your best effort Don't do it 10 minutes before class starts and then turn it in. Give it your best effort. This is your first big assignment. So please put some effort into it because it's really important to be able to summarize effectively. As always, if you have any questions, remember if there's simple questions, do the 3 before me. Contact your 3 people. If they don't have the answer, contact me. I'm not saying that because I don't want you to contact me, but sometimes it's easier just to contact a peer and ask them, hey, what's due on Thursday? And they'll tell you. Because I do get bogged down with emails and it gets crazy and I don't want to miss something simple that I could have answered and then I missed it and then you didn't get your answer. But as always, if you have a question that a student can't answer, if it's something that only I can answer, please feel free to email me. I promise you, after this, I know you're not going to like this, but after this, I don't miss class. And this is hard for me to miss classes, really hard for me to miss classes. I hate being late and I hate missing classes. So just know that you're stuck with me from now until December 8th or whenever we're done. Well, actually, I should knock on some wood because God forbid something terrible happens. But I don't miss classes, so just know that. So hopefully you have or had, depending on when you're watching this, a great Labor Day weekend. And I will see you on Thursday with all of this work. All right, talk to you later. Now I got to figure out how to turn this off. Oh, okay, bye.